You're gonna have to go through the process of going through different people. They gonna show up and they gonna do their job and they gonna overdo it. Them days when you don't want to do it, get up and you do it. Who is Jermaine? First of all, I want to say congratulations to you, man. I seen you from the beginning, and I seen your growth, and I see what you're doing now. I want to say congratulations on the show, and on your bro, fire. I do appreciate that. No problem, man. But Jermaine England, I've been a producer for about 20 years in the industry. Working on music videos. I started working on my first music videos was uh, Rick Ross' "Every Day I'm Hustling." So I started from that as a PA. Started from the ground zero, getting an opportunity from my mentor, Diane Airwood, who works with 305 Film. You guys familiar with Gil Green? Gil Green for 305 Films? Yeah, he started off for me. That's where I started my foundation in 2006. Actually, this year makes 20 years anniversary for me being in the film industry. So, that's a good accomplishment. Yeah, so those yeah, 20 years in, man. It wasn't easy. So, but we persevered. We had a dream. We started with a dream, like all of us have a dream, and we put the work in. And we followed through. So here we are today, working on production and staying with this and doing more wonderful things. Not 100%, bro. Right. So I want to go back to a conversation I had with you about, I think it was maybe about 2 years ago. You know, I, I came to you and asked you, about building within niche because it's hard. It's a tough road, and a lot of times, or many times, a lot of people just quit. So what does it feel for aspiring artists or people who want to work in production or people who want to work in certain aspects of the industry? Like, well, what is your source of motivation? What can you tell them to motivate themselves and push through? Yeah, 100%. Well, first of all, I think you gotta love it. You gotta have a deep passion and a deep, love for what is it you're trying to do. And you definitely consistency. I would say consistency is the most important thing on the journey because it is a journey. But like I say, it's gonna be ups and downs. It's gonna be roadblocks. It's gonna be all type of stuff that try to stop you. But you got to be consistent in your vision. You have that vision and you know what you're trying to accomplish, and you just got to stick to the plan. You know, uh, it's like I said, it's gonna be trials and tribulations, but you know what you're trying to accomplish, but you just gotta stick to it, man. And consistency, I would say, is the main thing. Um, Not taking any time off. You know, and and putting in the work, putting in them hours when nobody's not looking, up being up 3 4 hours doing research, and putting in them hours in, man. It's very important. So what was your vision? Because you started as a PA, and where did you see yourself going? Did you just follow a particular path, or you know you came with? I guess you came to this idea that you want to be a producer and work behind the scenes and manage all these projects. Like, what was that story like? Well, for me, it started out me wanting to be a director at first, honestly. So when I met my mentor, Dai Harewood, he put me in the game. I was learning, and I wanted to be a director. I actually directed a few music videos, and me directing the music videos, I was also because it's smaller budget, so I was also producing, directing, doing everything because it's in the beginning. So during the process, I found out that I like the producing aspect of it better, you know, than the creative aspect, And the best thing I ever did was find my partner, shout out to Young Chang. And I said to him, you have a better eye than I do. Like, I could put it together, but I think you should direct and I produce. You know, so here we are. So the directing role is completely different from the producing role.
Oh yeah, it's totally. But I mean, they both work hand in hand, because a director and a producer have to be on the same page. I think the best thing is when a director knows how to produce also, right? But as a producer, I think the best, is knowing all the positions in the industry, all the positions on the crew. That's very important. So if somebody's trying to charge you for something, it. You know about lighting, you know about art department, about locations and stuff like that, everything. So I think knowing the whole spectrum of it is very important.
So, we live in a world where creative is everything, especially in the digital world. But I think a lot of people, or the point that a lot of people miss, is the numbers. How do you approach that? Especially, let's say you're an upcoming professional, creative, whether you want to do marketing, whether you're an artist, that has to be done because that drives the sales. And how do you manage that? Especially from somebody who is starting off.
Well, put it like I say, when I found out producing is what I like and numbers is what I like, it became easy to me. So as you know, producing is all about putting the whole play together. Obviously it start with a treatment, start with on paper, and we want to take what we see on paper and obviously bring it to life, working with your director, hand in hand and going over each individual stuff that you try to bring to life. So that's very important. But as far as numbers, that's a very important thing, because as a producer, you wanna be able to come under budget. You don't wanna if somebody give you 50,000, you want to be able to spend 45,000. You know, so that's very important on how you budget. How you structure everything. So I think being able but that comes with time. You're just not going to start out at being this amazing producer off hand. You're gonna mess up. I think you're gonna go over budget sometime. But I think the process shows you how to. Okay, cool. Let me not do this. I lost 5,000 from that. Okay, cool. Let me budget for expendables because I know something might mess up. But I think going through the process that shows you what you need to do, right? And you just gotta follow suit. And it really one of the things that I love to do is after every job I sit down and I say to myself, what could I've done better? You know? And I think as long as you have that outlook, you're gonna get better at it. 'Cause it's all about solving problems and not being able to move, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a business,
100%.
and you built quite a big and reputable business there in Miami and also across the country, I would say. So, what systems do you have? Because I think as you go along, it's all about systems and people or artists, whomever is building a company, it needs to focus on the system. Do you have an accountant? Do you have lawyers? Like, well, what do you have for your business?
System. Well, I do. I think that's the thing that really makes me move. It's really a team. Having the right team around you. Having the right production manager. Having the right production coordinator around you. Having the right art director. I think in this industry you definitely want to surround yourself with the right personnel because it's going to make your job easier. You definitely don't want to hire somebody that you hire them, but you have to look over your shoulder to make sure you get the job done right.
Right.
You want to hire somebody to be able to turn around and know that they get the job done, and when it's time to shoot, everything is set up and we're ready to get an amazing project.
Right. Well, I mean, we worked on several projects together, but also just generally, it's a rodeo, I would say, because sometimes people aren't reliable, things happen, so there's lots of variables. So, how do you manage it and how do you find the right people? Because, you know, you might have $75,000, $100,000 project, and obviously I'm pretty sure you've gone through this. People don't show up, and how do you adjust for that? But also, how do you find the right person or people that you can call out that will show up to help execute that project that I created?
Well, I think finding the right people, it just don't come. You're gonna have to go through the process of going through different people, but you'll know when you find that right individual for the job, they'll show up. They're gonna show up and they're gonna do their job and they're gonna overdo it. But you as the overhead gotta see that and recognize that and appreciate that. A lot of times like being in the top position, you tend to overlook the little man or overlook what's going on. But I feel like being the boss, you have to see everybody, even the dude cleaning the floor. You know what I'm saying? You gotta see what everybody is doing because everybody, anybody could become an asset for you. You get what I'm saying? So you got to be able to see the value in people and be able to see the good and bring them up with you. One of the things I've been blessed to do is give people opportunity. Like I've given you opportunity, I've given countless people opportunities, but I've given opportunities to people that I've seen that deserve the opportunity. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just not just, oh, I'm just going to give you opportunity because, nah, you have to earn that from me, especially for me, because I know what it takes. I know the process and everything. So you got to give respect where respect is due. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's all about the next generation. You know what I'm saying? And showing the love and dealing the game, like what they say. That's very important.
Well, you did mention opportunities. So let's shift the conversation a little bit. How do you create opportunities for yourself? How do you get in front of those people that matter? Whether, you start off from point A to point B to point C, now you're working with the biggest brands in the world. How do you do that? Or what should you go directly? Should you shoot your shot? Or what do you think is your process? Or what do you think someone out there should take? The process someone should take?
Well, I would say for any process, it don't matter what you're doing. You gotta be consistent, Like I always say, consistency is the most important thing. That's gonna get you there, because we all on our journey, we all are trying to accomplish things. But I think, being consistent and being dedicated and being down to it, man, through it all, because it get tough. You know what I'm saying? It get tough to where sometimes you just want to walk. You want to walk away and like I don't want to do this no more. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I say you gotta really gotta love it to be like, yo, them days when you don't want to do it, you get up and you do it. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's gonna benefit what you're trying to accomplish. You got a dream, you got a goal, you got a vision, and you know what you're trying to accomplish. So that's very important, right? And it's all about discipline. You know what I'm saying? Discipline really is the key to this. It's the key to anything in life. Whatever you're trying to accomplish in life, if you don't have discipline, it won't work for you. No matter how much you pray or all that, if you're not disciplined to the process, it will never work.
So let's dig deeper into that. The process. Do you do research? Do you set up in a like said discipline? Do you send 100 emails each day and hope for somebody to come back to you? It's a numbers game, or what is that process?
I mean, I think for me now, I've been in the game for a minute where, my work and my reputation have gotten to a point where I don't really have to do that. The work kind of comes for me, because I'm also in house, at a record label. Shout out to Black Brown Records, who's in Atlanta. Barry, shout out to Barry Hankinson. That's Aaliyah, the label Aaliyah was on. Rest in peace to Aaliyah. We're in house at that label, so we do all the videos and all the content, and everything for that label, And we also work with shout out to Kodak Black. We do a lot of work with Sniper Gang, and shout out to Def Jam. We do a lot of work with Def Jam also. So I've been able to build these relationships that these clients, they come to me when they need projects, and that's because of the consistency. That's because of the dedication over the years, the work I've put in. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
That led to people seeing my work, seeing my consistency, seeing my brand, and now it's like, okay, cool. We gotta be tapped in. Okay, cool. I'm in Miami. I gotta be tapped in with Black Pro because they doing their thing. So I think once you put the work in, man, the result gonna come. I don't, like I always tell young filmmakers, like put the work in. Stop worrying about how much you gonna get paid and all that. And bro, put the work in. The results gonna come. I interned when my first job, few jobs I interned. I wasn't worrying about money. I was worrying about the opportunity because I knew the opportunity was gonna bring the money, which it did. That's what it's all about.
Now, let's talk about Brandon. I think you've done a, a pretty good job, Brandon, because I've been to some of your events before, and you have your logo on pens and cups and the whole nine yards. I kind of feel sometimes creatives kind of shy away from that. They're just like, I just want to do me, or I just want to be stuck in the studio, but I don't want to do the other stuff. And the goal a successful brand, the goal of a successful company, and what are the things that you need to do as an artist to get there?
I mean, like you say, Brandon, marketing, 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 marketing. It's as you know, it's the most important thing for a brand, an artist. Anything you do needs to be marketed, no matter how big you is. As you see, McDonald's still market, and they the biggest one of the biggest brands. So who are you? You know what I'm saying? Who like if you're not marketing, then you're not getting yourself out there. And you as an artist, you have to be able to put yourself out there. And I think you have to be vulnerable as an artist. You see like the artists that I see that's winning are the artists that's putting themselves out there and being vulnerable to their fans and people being able to know, okay, cool, I could relate to him. I could I feel what he got going. I feel what he got going on. So being relatable and being able to market yourself is very important. Putting your brand out there, putting your logos and being the face of your brand is very important. Like I always say, you never know who's watching. You never know who say, okay, that person might connect with what I have going on. I might want to work with them. So I think that's very important. As you see, we got the internet and it's
Right.
worldwide. I got
Love to
people.
see it.
I got people reaching out from all over. Africa, all over. So I just put the work in, man, and put myself out there and let the rest follow. But branding is very important. Marketing, marketing, marketing.
So, how do you deal with disappointments or setbacks, especially in this crazy world? Uh, Budgets can get slashed, so and you could be working with a label, a company, whomever, and then they say, they invest so much into a project, and they say, I don't want to work with it. Then you have a whole crew you got to pick, got to figure that out. And I think these are things that, as you grow, artists need to really understand this. There's a high chance that it will happen. So, and for the artists, for the people who want to build production companies and whatnot, so people who want to be executives, like, what do they need to do? What do they have to look forward to? Because it's success, but there's also these things that you have to mitigate and plan for.
No, 100%. Like you say, it's never a straight run. It's gonna be roadblocks, it's gonna be bumps, it's gonna be all that. But I think having an open mind is very important. And for me, being a producer, I think is one of the most stressful job in the industry.
Absolutely.
100% because you're responsible for so much, the crew and personnel. So like I'm all set. Literally, like we shot. I shot Mike Will and Young Thug last night, and we did stunts. So we had a girl rigged up and she flew through a wall. But me as the producer, I'm like, what if, I'm just thinking like, I'm thinking about all the things that could happen. So it's like, all these things, you gotta be, just gotta be worried out. But it's a beautiful thing. I love it. I try not to be stressed out. I try to keep it mellow, because I understand the stress of the industry, and I pray a lot, and I believe in the Most High. So, I tend to put a lot of things in His hand, and I move, and I groove, I groove. But no, I know, industry is all about being able to pivot. You know what I'm saying? I call myself the pivot king because, in the industry, stuff gonna change. You might come to a location and, you probably can't shoot at a location. So, you just can't be locked into a certain specific idea or like, you might have a whole treatment you plan to shoot, but it might not work out that. But you got to be able to pivot and be able to, okay, cool. I can't do this. Let's create. Let's move and do something else. And you got to be willing to let the universe help you too. And a lot of times, really, what happened a lot of times when that happened, you end up getting a better product than what you was trying to do before.
Wow.
Yeah,
So in other words, you have to be open minded. Yeah.
100%, 100%.
But so yeah, on the creator side, pivoting is pivotal because there's so many variables and things that happen. But what about it, on the business side? Trends happen, trends change, user changes, the internet changes, the algorithm changes, and what could be doing last year, 6 months can completely shift, and then that affects how you do business, how you uh work on the creative or work produce with the creative, how you execute. How do you manage that as a producer and as a business person?
I mean, I think we're seeing that now in the film industry, right? Because, as you see, with the whole streaming thing going on, and the payment of artists, that also affects the film side, right? So now the budgets are not as big as they used to, right? We're not getting, the budgets are not big as they used to, but what they are doing now, they're shooting more videos, right? So let's say before artists, whatever new artists, they used to give them 50,000, 75,000 to shoot a video. Now they're saying, okay, a new artist, okay, here you go 5,000, here you go 10,000, right? But instead of shooting that one video, we're gonna give you 10,000, but we're gonna shoot 4 or 5 videos, right? So I think we just have to change with the game. Or literally, the video that I shot last night, Mike Will and Young Thug, the director, shout out to Sin, he shot it with his iPhone. No, never shot it with an iPhone.
Shot an iPhone?
Shot it with his iPhone. And
What was that? How big was the budget? Was it big?
I mean, it was a $30,000 budget, but he shot it with his iPhone. So, we gotta this is where the game is really going. You know what I'm saying? So, again, we gotta be privy to it, and we gotta be able to move with it, right? And we gotta, as same thing with AI, right? We gotta be aware of what's going on, and we gotta be accepted to it, right? Because if we don't, we gonna get left behind, right? So we gotta figure out how to move with everything what's going on, and make it a part of what you got going on, right? Because if you don't, you just